All right, so we're going to try to answer one main question in this video. Can SpecKit work on a really large project? I'm really struggling with SpecKit as a tool. I really respect sort of the hard work and the effort that the team over at SpecKit are doing, the GitHub team, in order to kind of build something that makes sense. The truth is though, is that every time I tried it, I did a video about this. So if you haven't seen that video, go watch that video on my channel where I say that SpecKit is just not for me. And it was kind of an introductory video just to like what it is and what it's doing. In this video here, what I'm trying to do is do more of a deep dive to really sort of analyze whether this is going to work for a really large project, because that's a question that I have. Like everybody that I'm seeing is just kind of testing this sort of in light to-do level applications. The problem is I don't work on to-do level applications, and I'm willing to bet that you're working on also larger code base. And that's kind of what I'm aiming to answer in this video. Is this thing going to work on a really large code base? And by really large, I just want to be clear. The application, let me just show it right now, just to be clear. So this is the application that I'm working on right now. It is basically it gives some background context. It manages contractors, jobs, work orders, billing, etc. There's a few other stuff inside of here, but for the most part, you can dispatch the technicians and sort of manage projects and do time tracking and all that type of stuff and do purchase orders and then bill it. So that's kind of the application. It doesn't really matter, but it's a Nuxt 2, not Nuxt 3 application. So it's a little bit on the older side, which is exactly what I'm thinking about. Like if you're going to do SpecKit on an existing application, it's probably been around for a while. Originally was written, I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago. We've been making small improvements to it. And of recently, I've been trying to gain more speed and velocity by adding more features at a rapid pace with AI. Hence my interest in SpecKit and trying to figure out whether this is going to work for us or not. So I just want to be real with this right off the top. Like in every single experiment that I've done so far, I just haven't been able to get this thing to work the way that it's being sold. And I want to be clear. I understand that this is early technology and maybe in a couple of other months, the evolution of it might turn into something great, but I just want to highlight and document where we are today so that you understand if, or at least you get a feel for whether this might work for you or not. And that's kind of the motion of this video. So what am I setting out to do in this video? Number one is I'm trying to understand, one, there's about 5,500 lines of code roughly in this application. Okay, so it's not super large, but it's also not a small application either. It has lots of varying levels of complexities. It has a print to PDF. It has an email integration. It generates PDF documents. It creates invoice, right? Calculations, time tracking, like I said. So with an existing set of code base, and I already have an existing set of task lists. My challenge that I've been trying to figure out is like, well, how does SpecKit work with my existing set of tasks? Because on my GitHub for this application, I think there was about, let me just pull it up. So this is what the task board looks like. These are all the outstanding sort of tasks that I have on file. So I'm just thinking of, okay, one is I want to export this list, a tool, basically get a list of all the different tasks, outstanding tasks all together, and then try to see if we could basically use SpecKit against it to create sort of specifications for those tasks. At least that's what I'm thinking about it tonight. Maybe I'm thinking about this all wrong, and that's really where I'm struggling with this. And I'm putting this information out not to bash the team at GitHub and what they're doing. I'm putting this information out there so that you, the developer that is also trying to figure out how to get more speed from AI, can at least sort of like learn from my sort of shortcomings, or maybe just correct me and be like, you know what? You're an idiot. You're using this thing wrong. This is how you do it. Like, put those comments in the chat. I would gladly take those feedback and try to figure out how to make this better. But as of right now, and watch the video for yourself, I'm trying to give you sort of the synapse so I could spare the burden of having to watch this long video. That being said, do watch it for yourself to kind of come to your own conclusion. I tried to kind of cut out the AI sort of generation portions of it. But for the most part, I've been at it for now more than about 4 hours. Maybe a little bit less than that, but haven't been able to like come to any kind of conclusion as to whether this will work for me on a sizable project like this. So that's kind of the challenge right now. Is this thing even production ready? So you be the verdict based on what you're seeing. By the way, if you're new here and you're trying to figure out who I am, I'm focusing on violent production applications on Cloudflare platforms. My goal is basically to try to build the fastest vibe coding production grade application. And so with that, if that's something you're interested in, please subscribe to the channel. I'm slowly growing, trying to grow the channel and build a community around real production code. What I find right now on the internet is that on YouTube especially is that there's just a lot of demo applications, and I'm fine with demo, but I'm like, show me a real production application, show me how you're doing it in production, and then I can at least try to apply that to my production application. And I know that vibe coding is the new word and every single thing is about vibe coding. All the applications are brand new. My thing is, what happens if you have an existing application and you need to add additional parts to it with vibe coding sort of practices? How would that work? And that's kind of what the mission is with this goal of this video, and that's why I'm exploring SpecKit. Again, if you haven't watched my previous video, please watch it, SpecKit and why it's not for me. This video is really just an extension of that, going a little bit more deeper into sort of where I'm at with this technology. So with that, let's jump right into the video. Okay, so I ran a command that I found on ChatGPT that tells me there's about 5,500 lines of code for the front-end application. That's not back-end infrastructure or anything. So this should give us a pretty good real-world take on whether SpecKit is going to work correctly. So I'm going to branch this out. Okay, let's just open that up. Okay, so with that, we're going to run SpecKit. So we're going to run specify init here. Oops. Specify it here. That's going to get a specify going. So we're going to continue. Templates will emerge. We're going to use GitHub Copilot. We're going to use a script. Okay, so with that, let's go set up our constitution. And again, just to recap, the constitution is basically sort of like your non-negotiables. This is going to allow you to ensure that the AI keeps 100%, or I shouldn't say 100%, but as firmly as possible, not add in some of the things that you don't want in your project. So we're going to say / constitution. We're going to say this is a Nuxt 2 application, so please follow all the best practices around Nuxt and come up with a constitution that basically focuses on that based on the documentation of Nuxt. Ensure that we have all of the important do's and don'ts for this. Actually, let's use codex. All right, so that took a little bit under about 5 minutes to run, just under 5 minutes, 4.5, I would say. And let's see what I actually put in there. So first of all, it says implement a planned feature. So here's actually, this is kind of a problem, because if you notice here, it put a task list in place. And all I asked for was a specification file. So this is a problem that I keep running into right off the top with the Spec Kit, is that it tends to, when I'm using GPT-5, or before I was using Claude because I thought it was a Claude problem, it's doing the same thing, which is generating more code for all of the other stuff than it should. Okay, so let's see what we got here. So Nuxt pages and should be client. This should be client side. Okay, let me just tell it to ensure that the constitution focuses on client side only. So that's one change that we want to make. Okay, so we're going to make 2 changes to this file. We want to make sure that all the constitution file focus on client side only, because it's not a server side rendering. The entire application is authentication, and it should be protected with auth0. And since this is Nuxt 2, and because this is Nuxt 2, TypeScript is not necessarily the preferred, so use only JavaScript, because Nuxt 2 does not have great support for type. Okay, so we got it to make some of the changes, specifically around the constitution. See, again, I'm in the specs file here, but if I look on the constitution, I got some changes. Client side only, Nuxt 2, server side equal false, SPA only, Nuxt application, prefer client only. Yeah, that's right, guard. Okay, so that's one. Where the specify comes in is now we're going to start talking about like what is it that you're actually trying to build here. So this is a construction management software, contractors in the trades industry, so plumbers, electrical company, garage door, HVAC, etc. And the primary mission is to be able to help them to create codes faster, track jobs, work orders, or projects, track their technicians in the field with the field management component, manage scheduling, and create build-in as fast as possible, where it's possible that one company could have multiple locations, so they need to be able to manage multiple locations. They also need to be able to send out quotations and get signatures, as well as send out invoices, record payments, and integrate with other external systems. On the calendar and scheduling, they need to be able to dispatch to jobs to their technicians and be able to keep track of the work and status of the work as it comes in and update the job boards in real time. Alright, so now that we have some kind of specification, we got a draft specification that took another, let's call it 5-6 minutes. And so I got, this is a construction management software, must be complete for every sure include only for AI generation. So see here the specify file as content quality, no need. Okay, fair enough. So we got a specify file. We're going to keep that. We're going to create a new context. And this one we're going to do something a little differently. So we're going to do the plan and the task list. I forgot what the plan is. Let me just go back to the documentation here. So you know what? I made a mistake because I ended up having the constitution with the tech stack, but we'll do it again. Apparently the plan is supposed to have the tech stack inside. The application is a Nuxt, Nuxt2 application, Vue 2 application. Do not use TS files, TypeScript files, because Nuxt2 do not support it very well. There's a centralized layer for API calls. Every single thing should be in a component and pages where necessary. There's already a design and a style guide. So use the existing infrastructure in order to get things right, and also use details from the GitHub Copilot instructions to create a plan. Okay, so we're going to let that rip, and the plan will have some duplication overlap with the constitution because my brain, again, still trying to get used to this idea, so we'll see what happens there. Okay, so the plan is there, and we're going to do clarify and analyze so that we could have the AI ask us some very specific questions and make sure that we're getting things right. But I'm going to go and focus on the task, which is this generic actionable item task. Now, the way I'm going to do this, because we already have all the tasks in GitHub, so it only makes sense. And this is a board that has a whole bunch of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to click on export view, export. I'm going to go there. Okay, so we're going to do /task, and we're going to say, give above TSV file, create a very detailed set of action items that must be implemented based on the details in this document. Okay, so we're 40 minutes in since I started this process and the task list in. So I'm kind of confused because it has task template. These are templates here. Yeah. So, okay, I think I'm a little confused here because I don't think that all of these tasks are supposed to be in one file. Let me find out. Okay, so we got a task here with a whole bunch of different tasks, but it's all under tasks, under specs, under this 1001, which I'm not entirely certain is the right thing to do, because if you look at the documentation here, it's suggesting that there probably should be like on the /tasks, it will automatically create sort of like almost like a task for each key validation scenario task. Right, so here's what I'm getting confused by. This is the suggested application that they're building. This is the traditional approach. Here we're going to say specify, give it the name, tell it what we're building. Then we're going to give it a plan of how to build it. And then we're going to say task, which will generate this 003 chat application. So this 003 is just basically a specification for the first checkout. But the problem is in here, the lists derive from the plan. So what I'm confused by with this is I just took my GitHub lists and I basically prompted to do it /task, which it created this. Let me just make sure this is actually the right thing. No, so it has some things on what it's going to do, but it's not very clear that it's all of the stuff that I wanted to do. So for example, let's say an accounts receivable screen. Just going to use that as an example. This is something that we're working on right now. So if I do in here, accounts receivable roll-ups, implement an accounts receivable, map jobs to invoice, draft payments, and accounts receivable roll-up, store module invoice. So this is supposed to be this is supposed to be the test, right? Okay, so let's do /clarify first. We're going to do /clarify. Let's keep this. I'm going to do /clarify, and let's just do enter. So it should go through the plan and ask me some qualifying questions if I get there. Okay, so we did /clarify. It asked me a question. Zeroing in on real-time syncing promises so we can lock the performance target. How quickly must the job status update propagate across calendar technician lists? Push updates within 5 seconds of change. Allow background pooling. 1 minute. So let's go with B. Okay, so I got another question here. Lockdown external touchpoints next. Which external business systems must we support in the final release? QuickBooks, HubSpot, CRM, Sage. No third-party systems in MVP. See, it just seems that I'm running an MVP. I'm not. This is a full-fledged application. But we're going to take the bait and we're going to do A and let it toil again, figure out. Right? Okay, clarifying permissions on matrix next. Which role policy do you adopt for manager, scheduler, finance user, ops manager, full control? Yeah, we're going to go with A for now. Not a question. Firming up on the offline technician experience. When technicians lose connectivity while uploading jobs, how should the system handle their changes? Let's go with Q. Now, keep in mind that this system here, the truth is that some of these tasks are mixed with mobile, so we'll see how it deals with this. Also, it's not very clear how many questions is it going to ask me. Testing coverage remains to be clarified. Do we require automation, regression coverage for offline sync to go live? No. Okay, so it gave a summary, clarification 5. Okay, that's interesting. I suggested the plan command as the next command because we went through that already. Let's do analyze so we can see what that looks like. All right, analysis. It's coming up with this table here that gives me, if I'm being honest, I'm not certain what. So where is it? Sorry, here. So analysis report about apparently the plan is not properly implemented. And I think that what's going on here is that there's a spec file. It created sort of like a branch or at least folder, but there's a main spec file, which I understand that it's supposed to branch for every single task that it's created, but it's not very clear why the plan is in its own thing. So it's saying that the author the plan with architecture decision, this is a recommendation flow, because apparently the summary is that the implementation plan is completely empty despite the task calling it a prerequisite, leaving the architecture sequence, right? So I need to implement the plan again, which is annoying. And then code rejection, revision, flow remains unresolved. Acceptance criteria cannot be validated in task. Example, task definition, targets outcome. Technician entity is listed twice. Once without offline, one being SPECT defers to automated offline sync regression. Yeah, so it's giving me a bunch of sort of like specs around the recommendation. So it was just that before I do this, I need to fix this problem here with a plan. Implement missing plan. And functional requirements 8, 115 task. I just be clear, I still don't know at this particular point where I'm going with this. All right, that's my kind of a problem that I'm struggling with. So let's just do new, we're going to do / plan. And we're going to say the same thing again. Create a plan for, I don't even know what a plan is for. I'm just going to do / plan and press enter. I'm not certain what to put in the plan again, since I already did that at the top level. Should I repeat the same thing? Is something completely different? We'll find out. Alright, so the analysis finished, and we got more files. Wrapping up the planning workflow, here's a snapshot of the trade. And we got these YAML files that kind of gave a bunch of stuff, specifications, but the truth is I don't know what they do. So I'm a little bit lost for words right now because it's not very clear. So far, we've created 28 files, a couple of YAML files, a task file, specs file, a research file. And one of the problems that I have altogether is I'm not very clear on if I do / implementation, does it just go to town and start doing stuff? Is it going to tackle one task at a time? Is it going to just tackle the tests? So let's just find out. Let's do / implementation. So it's going to follow the implementation of specify template script. Okay, so I ran the / implementation. It's telling me that it has a bunch of work to do. There's 30 plus jest / nightwatch specs across the integration UI. So in other words, it's saying there's a lot of stuff to do here. It didn't actually do anything. So again, struggling with the value that I'm really getting here. So let me know if you'd like to prioritize upcoming phase. I'll dive into the test authoring next. So it's saying that the remaining backlog is extremely large with 101 opening, planning, test, score, etc. So I'm like, yes, please, yes, proceed. Okay, so we're basically 2 hours into this thing, and we got this requirements coverage, added the trade recession. I got another 28 files that's been changed, updated. We got a bunch of tests, maps customer. So let's just run the test and see what happens. Why regression surface because it isn't configured properly? Yes, please handle it. Okay, so I'm left with another 35 files that has some tests that does some things that I just don't know what it's testing. I gotta be honest, I'm a bit overwhelmed at this particular point. I need to sit down and just kind of go through these files piece by piece to really understand what's going on here. Obviously this is a test, so I can't jump to any conclusion because I'm trying to understand, like, how does this work in a really large project? And the truth is, I'm just coming away lost, confused, with no real clear end. That's all I got. I just don't have an end here. So I appreciate any comments about this, to be honest with you. More files. I'm probably doing something wrong, just to be clear. I'm just not getting it. I'm not understanding the concepts. So there's something that I'm missing, and I'm trying to wrap my brain around it, and I just can't. So anybody out there that has any ideas about how to solve this, like, my previous video kind of talks about this in sort of higher level concept. This video was really just for me to kind of show the process, just in case anybody else is trying to potentially do this on a larger project. My opinion about it still stands the same, which is why I wanted to do this video, because I want to be honest and transparent in sort of like how I'm coming to these conclusions, and hopefully that you've seen that from this video.